Alright, welcome back to another video. This is my post-Georgia video. I know it's been almost 2 weeks now, but I've had a lot going on. But nevertheless, there's a lot of Georgia stuff to get into. I will also be making a video on Inauguration Day, just talking about the insurrection at the Capitol, the impeachment, and the inauguration, just because I feel like I need to address that. It's not necessarily all election related. There certainly are going to be massive effects on future elections, but I just felt that I needed to address the insurrection. So, for those of you who have been living under rocks, Democrats have won the Senate. They won both Georgia races. Raphael Warnock won 51-49, and Ossoff won 50.6 to 49.4. It was a decent-sized upset, but also one that people kind of saw coming. The Democrats had a massive voter turnout machine there. They also expanded the base. Also, Republican voters kind of stayed home, just because of all the Trump stuff that had been going on. But nevertheless, there is a lot to get into. Now, some people will argue that the key for Democrats in states across the country is just turnout. They just need to get turnout in the big cities, and that's it. They just need to, North Carolina, all they need turnout in Charlotte and Fayetteville. In Virginia, they just needed the Northern Virginia area and Norfolk. In Michigan, they really just needed Detroit, Ann Arbor. In Minnesota, they just need the Minneapolis area, but I don't agree with that. I don't think elections are about turnout. I think it's about expanding your base and expanding the amount of people that will vote for you. And we see that in comparison to Biden's result. Here is Biden's result. Biden won by 11 or 13,000, 12,000 votes. 4.9 million in this election. In the special election, I thought turnout was going to be a lot lower. There were 4.4 million, only 500,000 votes less cast, which is pretty astonishing. By the way, it is very interesting. 0.4% of people voted for Purdue and voted for Warnock. I'll get into that a little later. But if we compare Biden's results to Ossoff, who did worse than Warnock, we can see why. It's because Biden, Gwinnett County, 58%. Gwinnett, Ossoff, 60%. These were the results. In November, I was showing you how Ossoff was trailing in all these counties, Biden, by 2, 3, 4%. Well, he didn't just match Biden, but he overperformed Biden. Biden in Newton County, 54. Newton County, Ossoff, 57. In Henry, Ossoff, 62. 59. So we can just see, all Ossoff and Warnock needed to do was outperform Biden in key counties. And really, this election wasn't decided in Atlanta turnout or Augusta or the rural Democratic vote or Savannah. It was the Atlanta suburbs. It was Gwinnett, it was Newton, it was Henry, it was Douglas, and it was Cobb. It was those counties, those exact counties which, if we go back to 2000, were solid red Republican counties. In the 2008 election, Gwinnett County, let's find that, went 55% for John McCain. And this is in a year where it was a Democratic wave. I believe Romney did even better 4 years later. In Cobb County, McCain got 54. In Cobb County, Ossoff got 56. So, it's crazy just to see how much shifts we've seen in Georgia in just 12 years. Even if we go to Purdue's first victory against Michelle Nunn, who was maybe the best candidate to run in Georgia, even in my opinion, better than Ossoff and Warnock, it was just a really bad year for Democrats in 2014, which is probably why she lost. Also, again, Perdue family big in the state of Georgia, which is likely why Perdue outperformed Loeffler. But then Gwinnett went, David Perdue won Gwinnett by a fair amount. He won Cobb. He didn't win Newton and Henry. Those were kind of Democratic pickups. You could see, even in this result, how Democrats improved from a couple of years earlier. But nevertheless, this was just a mix of Democrats turning out, Republicans staying home, and Democrats expanding their base. This was not about turnout. This was about expanding your base. And they did that better than the Republicans. Suburban families in suburban Atlanta decided this election, and those who were Republican might have turned out for Loeffler or Perdue, but a lot of them stayed home, and a lot more of them also switched. A lot of them probably voted 2-3 months ago for Perdue and Loeffler, or Perdue and the other guy running, blanking on his name, the other Republican who got like 20%. But anyway, they switched. They saw what Trump was doing. They saw how he called the Secretary of State, said, find me 11,000, 12,000 votes, and said, you know what, I'm going to vote Democrat this time. Now, it remains to be seen because Warnock has to run in 2 years. We don't know if he's going to be at a disadvantage or an advantage. If Warnock wins in 2 years, then Georgia is creeping more and more into the Democratic column. It is kind of just becoming a swing state. 2008, people thought it would be a swing state. It really wasn't. 2012, really wasn't. Even in 2016, Trump won the state by 5 points. It's really now, since 2018, it is now a purple state, and it will remain that way for decades to come. Now, if we look at the exit polling from the state of Georgia, and I'm just going to look at the Ossoff-Perdue because Ossoff did worse, but you can see why Ossoff and Warnock won because this data is similar. There's only, maybe 100,000 voters 100,000 or 10,000, a very small number of people voted for Perdue but voted for Warnock. And those people were likely because, maybe they knew the Perdue family, because the Perdue family's been well established in Georgia for decades. But anyway, Atlanta suburbs, Atlanta metro. The fact that the Atlanta suburbs went blue decided this election. This was not about turnout. This was about expanding the base. Democrats won in crucial age groups. They won this 40 to 49 and even this 50 to 64. Republicans won, but they didn't win by very much. They won independents well. The most crucial part of Georgia electorate, moderates. They won moderates 63-37. They won 30% of the 30% of voters were African American. They won those 92-8. They won female voters, and they kept it close with male voters. And look at this, female voters, 55, male, 45. They really did well. They did equally well in urban and rural, but it was really close in the suburbs. And by the way, this is not just the Atlanta suburbs. There are of course, if we go back to our map, there are, Cherokee, Forsyth. These are more Republican. These are very much more Republican-leaning suburbs. But they also flipped because if we go to 2014, Forsyth went almost 80% for David Perdue, and it only went 67% for David Perdue just 6 years later. So we're not only seeing the inner Atlanta suburbs flip, but we're seeing the outer Atlanta suburbs get a lot narrower. So this election, it was a bit of a surprise. I'll admit it. I said if one of them wins, Warnock wins. And I was kind of right because I did say Warnock would outperform Ossoff, which he did. But I was very surprised about Ossoff winning. I thought Perdue was going to get the suburban turnout he needed. And he did not. Veterans, evangelical Christians. I encourage, if any of you, don't know, these exit polls are quite good. The only thing about these exit polls this time is that it was only for people who went and voted, so you won't get all the absentee voting. So we can see that in the Warnock-Loeffler race, it was pretty similar, but both of them won. Democrats now have the Senate. Joe Biden kind of has his agenda. I think I said this in my video before the Georgia race, about the three most powerful senators before and after. I said if the Republicans win, the three most powerful senators are going to be Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, and Mitt Romney. And now the three most powerful senators are three Democrats, three very moderate, three very conservative Democrats. Joe Manchin of West Virginia, yes, there is a Democratic senator from a state that voted over 40 points to Trump. Kyrsten Sinema, who was the first woman elected 2 years ago in Arizona. She's the first Democrat elected there to the Senate in a while. She is, according to GovTrack, which ranks senators by their ideology, she's more conservative than 9 Republicans, including Mitch McConnell. So she is now one of the most powerful people in the Senate. And John Tester, the Senate Democrat from Montana who won a narrow race 2 years ago, he is one of the most powerful people in Washington. Those three, they kind of control everything. It's up to them what kind of stuff they want to pass. With Joe Manchin, I think you're going to see a lot of Biden's environmental plan fall short because they might not get Manchin on board because he's from a coal state, West Virginia. There's just a lot to consider. But Ossoff won, first Jewish senator from Georgia. Warnock won, first African-American senator from Georgia. Very momentous occasion for a state that is getting a lot more diverse, a lot more Latino, a lot more Asia-Pacific people are moving to Georgia. If we go into shifts, because I was wanting to show you guys this, basically the whole state got bluer, especially in rural counties. And these were rural counties where Republicans really needed their turnout. That's kind of the outlier. There is some turnout involved with elections, but again, it's expanding the base. But Democrats did a lot better, and these couple thousand, couple hundred votes add up, and it ultimately was the margin because Ossoff won by a little over 50,000 votes, and Warnock won by much more, close to 100,000 votes. But those votes add up. Those percentages that Warnock and Ossoff did better than Biden, those add up, and that ultimately won the election for the Democrats and flipped the Senate. So, in conclusion, because the 2020 election is basically over, except we still have, this is kind of crazy that they still haven't called this, New York's 22nd district, where the Republican is ahead by 12. Well, here it says 12. I think it's officially 29. There's still a bunch of court battles. Marinette Miller Meeks ended up winning Iowa's 2nd district by 6 votes. I mean, if you don't think every vote counts, I would just point you to this Iowa 2nd district. But Biden has won. He will be inaugurated in just a couple of hours, really. He will be inaugurated. He will have a Democratic Senate. He will have a Democratic House, albeit a very slim majority in the House. Nancy Pelosi will be Speaker. Chuck Schumer will be the Senate Majority Leader. And he will have his... he doesn't have as strong a mandate as he wanted. He really wanted Senate wins in states like North Carolina. He wanted Maine. He wanted Iowa. He wanted it to be closer in Texas, Montana, Alaska, Kentucky. But nevertheless, he kind of got the mandate he wanted. And I did say in my last video that the narrative for this election was that the nation wanted Joe Biden, but they didn't necessarily want a Democratic government. And I'm still going to stand by that just because of what we saw in the House and all the surprise Republican victories we saw in the Senate. Even with Georgia, both Republicans did very well in the worst circumstances that Republican Senate candidates have ever faced. So I'm going to stand by that. I think that was the narrative. I think the nation wanted a change in the White House. And, they were skeptical about change at the Capitol. So this kind of concludes Georgia. As I said, I'm going to make a video on Inauguration Day just about the Capitol insurrection and the impeachment and the long-term effects of that stuff. I might do one more video kind of going through everything because I never really did a video going through all results. And then we'll start looking on to 2022 because there are a lot of important Senate races, a lot of important House races, and 36 governor elections. I'll also probably do one or two videos on the Virginia and New Jersey races. If you don't know, Virginia and New Jersey elect governors in odd years. So 2021, there will be a governor election in Virginia and New Jersey. So we might look at that, but this kind of concludes the 2020 election. So Ossoff won, surprise. Warnock won, surprise. Surprising, but also not surprising, given the circumstances Republican candidates had to face, and, Trump literally asking the Georgia Secretary of State to find him votes. But nevertheless, this concludes the Georgia video, and kind of the 2020 election. All right, thanks for watching. Stay tuned.